Hey, I think it's time for an intervention. You've super jumped right into a charger 4 times in a row. I'm pretty sure they're gonna hit 30 kills. Please come home. Hiya everybody, Fusion here. It's time to start recognizing some of the biggest mistakes we make when playing Splat 3 and see what we can do instead. Bad super jumps can be obvious, but there's plenty of more subtle things that put you at a disadvantage that you probably didn't realize. Let's get started. First, the obvious one, super jumps. When you die, you want to get back into the action as quickly as possible, but jumping to the furthest up teammate will often get you killed. Stealth jump, of course, is great at protecting your jump, but only if the enemies aren't already there or shooting at that area. It really doesn't take long to back in, so if you're unsure about whether you should jump in, just take it slow. Use the paint on the map as a guideline for where's safe. Areas that are mostly your color are okay. If possible, try jumping to a teammate that isn't the farthest pushed up, and maybe the second furthest instead. You can get familiar with the map and try jumping to teammates who are behind walls or other terrain. That will protect you from enemy fire. Does the enemy team have a charger? Maybe play a little bit more conservative, and don't jump if you don't have to. Do you keep dying to random bombs? You're probably jumping too much. If you jump around while you're shooting and moving, you often won't be able to react if an enemy throws a bomb under your feet. Because you're in the air, you can't move nearly as much as you would be able to on the ground, and need to wait until you hit the ground, which is usually too late. This is a really hard habit to break, but keeping jumping to a minimum helps you in other ways too. Most weapons have worse accuracy while in the air, and you can always choose to jump later if you want to. Staying on the ground as much as possible helps you learn to win situations your weapon is most reliable in. Sharking means hiding in your ink, usually far up, trying to get kills. It can be powerful, but doing it poorly can often just get you killed. Too many players shark in extremely obvious areas, like this single streak of paint going into enemy territory, or start hiding in the ink after someone on the enemy team has already seen them without even moving. In order to shark effectively, you should hide near but not in high traffic areas of the map. For example, hiding in this spot in front of the splat zone is a good way to get revealed early and killed, since the enemy team is going to be painting and focusing fire here anyhow. Hiding off to the side slightly or under ledges and walls are much better places to hide, and can let you slip behind enemies without needing much paint. I see a lot of newer players throwing bombs to help paint or when no enemies are around. Don't do it. Even things like blasters would paint more with their main weapon. You should use bombs to help you engage in fights or to help you escape them. Most sub-weapons are not worth using after you've already engaged in a fight, with the exception of chip damage like burst bombs or the quick exploding splat bomb. Most other sub-weapons simply are not fast enough once you've started fighting, and running out of ink during a fight is a sure way to lose it. Too often, players using weapons like Sloshing Machine start engaging after using their fizzy and run out of ink after just a few sloshes. Be mindful of how much ink your sub-weapon uses and balance how much you use it versus your main weapon accordingly. You should always have a purpose when you're out of the ink and using your main weapon. You can be painting the ground, fighting enemies, charging special, or searching for enemies with an AoE. All of these are totally valid. But it's really easy to think you're painting when you're actually just painting over the same area again. If you hold the trigger and move forward or back, you end up doing this, barely painting more than if you stood still. Ideally, you should be constantly relocating yourself. Paint, then swim, then paint, then swim. Staying out of the ink and in the same place too long really hurts you, even though it's not super noticeable. What do I mean by dropping early? I'm talking about going from a high ground position to a low ground one, where you have no easy way to back out. Things like the plat and zone on Inkblot, or the zone on Museum, or the zones and sides on Mincemeat. When you drop before your team is painted, you're never really sure whether you'll have a way out of this situation. The enemy team could be in between you and your plat, like on Inkblot, where they only have to paint the right side and you're stuck. Waiting until your team has multiple members or a special before you drop these areas is important, and will prevent you from getting double teamed. Sometimes dropping these areas can be okay if you have a target in mind that's past the vulnerable area and easier to defend, like the far left side on Inkblot by the tree. Frequently, players get on the tower, grab Rainmaker, or make power clams before their team has map control or a player advantage. In Rainmaker, grabbing the rain makes you extremely vulnerable, and if your team hasn't cleared the space around you, you'll go down and give the enemies a free kill. For the same reasons, it's really hard to fight while on the tower. Instead, you want to push forward ahead of the objective in the direction you want your team to push. If you want the Rainmaker to go left, you should clear that space yourself, target it with specials, and clear it out. Of course, you can't leave the Rainmaker or tower alone, so be mindful of whether you have a teammate able to push behind you with the objective to use the space you create. On the flip side, if you see your team pushing ahead and nobody on the objective, you should be the one to grab it and push with it. Because power claims give away your position, the same things apply. You should prioritize pushing up if you don't have a power clam or have a way to clear space even if the enemy knows where you are. Gear really doesn't matter that much. At top level, it might, but a top player can beat anyone in the game with the 3 pieces of blank clothing you start with. Most gear effects are minimal. It might give you 1 extra slosh in a fight, or the ability to not have to think about where you super jump. Mostly things that involve you not having to know the game in depth. Playing without things like Stealth Jump, Ninja Squid, and Special Charge help you understand the game better, and gives you a window into these abilities' strengths and weaknesses. Once you know how to approach people without using Ninja Squid, you can understand exactly what the ability helps you with and what it doesn't. When you improve enough, then it's okay to dive deeper into gear building. Replays, replays, replays. If you lose to something, review your replays. It always hurts to watch back footage of yourself playing badly, but you really need to. Focus on games that were close losses, and think about where you were relative to your team. Looking at your individual fights can help, but thinking more about when you started pushing in versus when the rest of your team did is more important. Content creators aren't gospel. We don't know everything. Be open-minded about what is good and bad in this game. I play a ton of Splatoon and blasters, so if someone like me starts complaining about weapons that paint a lot being OP, know that we have a bit of bias. No one's perfect at this game. That about covers some of the most common and simplest mistakes to fix. By watching replays, you can help yourself identify them and get yourself into good habits that lead you down the path to victory. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. I'm Fusion, thank you for watching.